Hi friends! Merry Christmas to those of you who are celebrating today, and happy holidays to all of you who don't celebrate Christmas. If you're having any holiday parties or holiday dinners today or anytime during this month and next, I have some awesome ideas for those holiday dinner and party leftovers. Let's get cooking.
First, I want to show you my favorite ham recipe in case you haven't made your ham yet or you're looking at this in the future. So go ahead and throw that ham glaze that comes with it away and prep your ham as normal. You'll cut all of it off the bone, making sure to trim all the fat so that way you have nice, good, hopefully mostly fat-free pieces for everyone to enjoy. Make sure to save the ham bone so you can use it for some ham broth later.
Right now, we're going to make my mom's Coca-Cola ham sauce recipe, and we're gonna pour it over all of this, get it marinating in the fridge for about 4 hours before we bake it later today. We're first gonna add 3/4 cup of brown sugar. If you don't spill a little bit on the counter, are you even cooking? Now we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. We're now gonna add in about a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. We're gonna do about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna just eyeball it. And then we'll do a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. We're gonna mix this into a paste, and then once it's well combined, we'll add in our Coca-Cola. It is crucial that you mix it into a paste before you add the Coca-Cola, otherwise the Coca-Cola will separate this and it will not turn out how you're hoping. So this is the consistency we're looking for, and we're gonna slowly add in 1 cup of Coca-Cola. It does not have to be the name brand, it can be off-brand as long as it's Coke or Dr. Pepper or Pepsi. You could even do Pepsi if you wanted to. We'll just stir it a little bit at a time until we have combined all of it together. We're gonna evenly split this between the 2 pans of ham. We're just gonna pour it on top until it looks right, and then we'll go ahead and stir it around to make sure all of the ham is covered. We're just gonna cover these and then we'll put them in the fridge. Fun fact, I've had this same terrible plastic wrap since we got married 7 years ago. Same exact roll. One of these days, we'll finish it and we'll get some good stuff. Like I said, we'll just put them in the fridge for about 4 hours and then we will cook them up for dinner. Both of the pans are in the oven now. We're gonna cook it for about 30 minutes at 350 degrees.
Here is what the ham looks like once you get it out of the oven. You can strain off the liquid and put it in a saucepan and boil it until it gets thick, and then you can use that as a gravy. This makes such an amazing ham dinner. You've got to try this one out.
Now we're gonna make some ham broth. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of minced garlic, so 2 to 3 cloves. I have about 2.5 celery stalks here, so we'll just add those in. About a cup or so of baby carrots, 1/2 an onion, and the ham bone. Just kind of move things around until we'll be able to close the lid. We'll go and get a whole bunch of water. We're gonna cover this with water. It'll all depend on how big your ham hock and ham bone are. I'm gonna say probably about 12 cups. I'm also gonna add in a few teaspoons of salt and then some pepper and also some onion powder since I only have the 1 onion. We're gonna cover this and put it on low for probably 12 or so hours. And I will turn it throughout the day just to move everything around and make sure that this part that is not covered with water does get covered with water. So we will check back in about 12 or so hours. It'll probably be closer to 18, but it doesn't matter. The longer it goes, the better the broth. Here is what the broth is looking like this morning. Going to strain it in a little bit. I turned it to off so that way we can make sure it's cool enough to put in the fridge or freezer to make some soups. Here is the ham broth. I just strained it. It is a little fatty on top, but the bottom looks just fine. We'll make 1 or 2 soups from this just to give you guys some ideas of things you can do with the leftover ham and ham broth. Hopefully you enjoy these next soups. I have a little bit of olive oil heating up in the pan, and then I'm going to add in my potatoes, my carrots, and my onions, and get those sauteing. To my pan, I'm gonna add about 1 celery stalk. I freeze mine because we can never go through it fast enough, so we're gonna add that in as well. I'm also gonna add in about a teaspoon of salt and then a ½ teaspoon of pepper. Next, I'm gonna add in about a cup of ham cubed. And I have about a 1/4 cup of this corn left, so I'm just gonna add that in as well. Next, I'll add in about a ½ tablespoon or so of garlic, a little bit more or less to your taste preferences. Next, we're going to add in 2 cups of ham broth and 1 cup of water. Next, I'll add in about a ½ can of navy beans, cannellini beans. I'm also gonna add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. We're gonna let this come to a boil, and then we'll let it simmer for about a ½ hour, and then the soup will be ready. Here is the finished soup. It is so tasty, and there's so many veggies and so many good sources of protein in here. Definitely will be making this one again in the future. We are gonna make some cranberry sauce oatmeal bars. You can use the jellied or the regular kind, whatever one works for you. So here are the ingredients. Let's make these delicious dessert bars. First, gonna add the dry ingredients. So 1 cup of oats, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. We're gonna stir all of this together until it's well combined, and then we'll add our butter. Now we're gonna add in 1 stick of butter. We're gonna stir this together with a spoon for a little bit, and then we're gonna get into it with our hands to make sure the butter is evenly distributed. We're gonna spray the pan with a little bit of nonstick cooking oil. We're gonna layer about 3/4 of the batter onto the bottom of here and then push it in with a spoon. Now we're gonna take about half of our can of cranberry sauce. It can be left over from the fridge or whatever. Mine's just fresh from the can. We're gonna just kind of spread it across, and then we'll mush it in. We're just gonna take the rest of the batter and sprinkle it on top. Here's what it looks like with it all spread. You can see the cranberry kind of throughout the middle there. We're gonna pop this into the oven. We're gonna put it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. Here are the final bars. I will cut into them in just a minute once they're done cooling down, and we'll see what they look and taste like.
Here is what the bars look like when you take them out of the pan. They are so delicious, not as sour as I thought they would be, and you can use this recipe really with any kind of jam that you have. We have some cranberry sauce still left over, so we are going to take these ingredients and make some meatballs. First, we'll add a half a can of cranberry sauce to my saucepan. We're going to get this reducing, and then we'll add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, a half a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and then a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar, depending on how thick you want your sauce. Then we'll add in a fourth teaspoon of salt and a fourth teaspoon of pepper, about a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and a fourth teaspoon of onion powder. You'll give this all a stir and then you'll add in your meatballs. I heated mine up in the microwave for a few minutes. You can do that as well or heat them up in the oven. And then you'll stir everything together to make sure the meatballs are covered in the sauce. I let this sit for about 5 or so minutes to make sure it was thoroughly warmed. And then we served it over some rice and had some asparagus. We'll definitely be making this one again soon. If you have some leftover mashed potatoes and ham, you can make this really tasty mashed potato casserole. You'll need about 3 cups of mashed potatoes. You'll put that into a bowl and add 1 large egg. And then you will add 1/3 cup of flour and 1/3 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. You'll knead all of this together to make sure that the egg, cheese, and flour are well combined with the mashed potatoes. And then you'll go ahead and add this to the bottom of your pan. I used an 8 by 12. You can use a 9 by 13, whatever works for you. You'll take about 2/3 of the potato mixture and layer it here, and then we'll go ahead and add our ham and our cheddar cheese on top. You can also use fontina cheese or Gruyere, depending on what you have and what your taste preferences are. We had cheddar on hand, so that is what I used. After you've added your cheese and ham, you'll layer on the rest of the mashed potato mixture on top, and then you'll sprinkle it all with some breadcrumbs. These can be seasoned, unseasoned, homemade, store-bought, whatever your preference is. And then, depending on how buttery your mashed potatoes were, you can add some dabs of butter on top. Mine were pretty buttery, so I decided not to do that step, but I'll have the recipe that I referenced down below for you if you want to follow that. Once you've sprinkled on those breadcrumbs, you will cover it with aluminum foil and put it into a preheated 350-degree oven for 35 minutes covered, and then you will bake it uncovered for an additional 10 minutes. This is what it looked like when it was done. This is such a great way to use those leftover potatoes. So tasty. Another thing we like to do with leftover ham is make breakfast burritos. For these ones, we used eggs and cheese and the ham. First, I melted some butter in the pan and then added the eggs. Once the eggs were cooked, I salted it with salt and pepper. You can definitely add additional seasoning here if that is what you prefer. And then I added in the ham and got that warmed up and mixed this together. And then I added the cheese and stirred this around. You can definitely add additional veggies like potatoes or onions, green bell peppers, whatever you desire here. I also warmed up some tortillas and then plated this together. You can top it with hot sauce, sour cream, salsa, really whatever you desire. These were so tasty and such a good way to use that leftover ham. We'll be making these again.
Another idea for your leftover ham is to make a breakfast casserole. This is one of my favorites. My mom made this a lot when we were growing up, and so I'm going to show you how to make it today. I'm gonna put the potatoes in the microwave for about 3 minutes. I did poke a few holes in the bag. This is just to speed up the cooking process on the stove. To this large skillet, I've added the potatoes, some Italian seasoning, some Lowry's seasoning salt, pepper, and onion powder. Just kind of eyeballed it until it looked right. I'll go ahead and have my mom's recipe in the description box for you if you want to follow that more closely. I just like to eyeball things. That's just how I cook. In my other pot, I have a can of cream of chicken soup and about a 1/4 cup of water. We're just gonna combine this together before we add some seasonings and cheese. I added some garlic, Italian seasoning, and pepper to my pot, and we'll just combine this before adding in the cheese. Now that the potatoes are starting to brown, we're gonna add our ham in. Just get that heated up. While the ham and potatoes cook, we're gonna go ahead and get our cheese sauce made. So we have our cream of chicken soup, and then we're gonna add in like 3/4 of this bag, which was the rest of it, into our pot here, and we'll stir it until it starts to melt. Once this is nice and smooth and the cheese is all combined, we'll go ahead and pour it over our potato and ham mix. It's just about there. We're gonna stir this until it's well combined, and then we're gonna add it into a greased 9x13 pan. Got it in the pan, and now I'm just gonna sprinkle it with a little bit of sharp cheddar cheese. We'll cover it and put it into a 375-degree oven for about a half hour or so. Another great thing about this meal, it freezes really well, and it also can sit in your fridge for a few days. So if you want to prep it ahead of time, or if you have an upcoming vacation, or it's just something going on, it's a good one to have just on hand in the freezer that you can pull out and heat up for your family.
You'll bake this for 30 minutes at 375 degrees covered, and then an additional 10 minutes uncovered, or until it looks crispy enough to your liking. And this is what it looks like when you pull it out. It is so warm and gooey, and it's just one of those great comfort foods.
And if you're tired of cooking, or you still have leftover ham after making any of these recipes, you can freeze it. So I have a bag that has just slices of ham in it. And then on this other side, you can see it a little better. I have 2 bags of cubed ham. That way I can throw it into soups or breakfast burritos in the future. And I'm just gonna pop these in the freezer as is, and we will use them in the future. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope this gave you some ideas on what you can do with those holiday leftovers instead of just eating them as leftovers. If you did like this video, please give it a like and leave me a comment down below of how you repurpose your leftovers. I'd love some more ideas, and I hope you have the best rest of your day. Bye!